South Africa has 3 years to fix its financial measures, policies and interventions if it is to be removed from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. The task force wants 8 strategic deficiencies to be removed by the end of January 2025. But what does all this mean for the country and the average South African? Business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo filed this report.
The rand slumped close to the 19 rand to the dollar mark last week, its lowest level in months. That's after the country was grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force, making government's efforts to amend the Financial Intelligence Center Act too little too late of an intervention. But what does being closely monitored by the financial body actually mean? Timothy Mertens, chairman at Sovereign Trust South Africa, says the implications are both reputational and financial.
We have been identified as a country which has compliance, for want of a better word, compliance issues in relation to our financial terrorism monitoring and all the ancillary activities that happen alongside that.
Consequences include the increased likelihood of the country once again facing a downgrade by credit rating agencies. This would affect the country's ability to borrow on the international capital markets. Other repercussions include a significant decrease in capital inflows that could result in a balance of payments crisis, a decline in external reserves due to lower capital inflows, economic penalties imposed against South Africa by state members and bodies such as the IMF and World Bank, discouragement of foreign direct investments into the country, driving the cost of doing business higher. These transaction costs will drive the cost of doing business even higher, and as companies face more scrutiny to prove their source of income, this cost and scrutiny will be passed down to average South Africans.
Over time, unfortunately, it just simply means that things will become more difficult. So if banks are under more scrutiny, for example, because that's obviously where many of the transactions take place, their compliance departments will have to boost, will have to be bolstered. More regulation will have to come in. And, that just slows down the economic process. And it does make it more difficult for people to operate, because then the banks obviously are going to pass on a lot of that scrutiny onto their customers.
What the nation now needs to do is fast-track interventions, including intensifying investigation and prosecution of serious and complex money laundering and terrorism financing, boosting mutual legal assistance requests to other countries, optimizing the use of financial intelligence by law enforcement agencies, and effectively implementing targeted financial sanctions. Some other recommendations made by the Financial Action Task Force include policy development to fight money laundering and terrorism financing, as well as for the Hawks to be beefed up with financial investigators and forensic accountants. But Stuart Theobald, who is the chairman of Intellidex, says there's more.
There is a clear directive from FATF that we need to be much better at supervising non-financial institutions. So those are things like attorney firms, real estate agents, Krugerrand dealers, second-hand car dealers, different kinds of businesses that are involved in large transactions that can involve cash and be used for money laundering. Now, the concern of FATF is that there's really not effective supervision happening of those areas of the economy.
Analysts are confident South Africa, like Mauritius, can get out of the grey list within a year if the country gets serious about clamping down on financial crimes. For Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405, I'm Ntokozo Khumalo in Johannesburg.